Mr. Hasdovic's United States History Online Lecture Series Part 2, The Age of Andrew Jackson. By the time Andrew Jackson became president in 1828, the United States of America had changed a great deal since its humble beginnings 52 years earlier. The size of the country had more than tripled thanks to the Louisiana Purchase by President Jefferson in 1803, as well as the acquisitions of Florida and the Oregon Territory, which the U.S. shared with England. 2 successful wars against England had greatly toughened up our young nation and instilled within it a deep sense of national pride. The many Native American tribes to the west, which once had cowered British colonists in fear from behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, were now either allies of the U.S., subdued by our country's greater military might, or far more often wiped out by diseases Americans had either built up resistance to or developed inoculations from, such as the smallpox. The peace and prosperity of James Monroe and John Quincy Adams' presidencies was only augmented by inventions such as Eli Whitney's cotton gin and experiments with early locomotives. Whitney ironically invented the cotton gin, which greatly speeded up the process of separating raw cotton from the multitude of prickly seeds inside of each puff, in the hope of eliminating the need for slave labor, since his device could greatly speed up the process of getting cotton to market. Instead, however, plantation owners merely saw more profits to be made by expanding their lands, and slavery with them, further into America's new western territory. The locomotives would soon dramatically speed up transportation to and from this new territory, placing an even heavier demand on more and more cash crops, as well as the slavery that was needed to produce them. After 50 years, America had grown in size and wealth, and the generation who had fought so hard and sacrificed so much to establish this experiment in republicanism was all but in the grave. Andrew Jackson was this early version of America made flesh. In 1780, at the age of 13, Andrew and his older brother Robert both joined the Carolina Regiment during the Revolutionary War. Captured by the British soon after, both boys nearly starved to death in a prison camp. A fierce defiance shining early, Andrew Jackson received several scars on his hands and head from the sword of a British officer. Jackson refused to shine the man's boots. Just days after his mother secured the boy's release, his brother Robert died from smallpox. All of Andrew Jackson's immediate family died soon thereafter because of the chaos caused by the war, orphaning him at age 14. Besides an intense hatred for all things British, and foreign for that matter, Jackson also developed an amazing sense of self-reliance. Although he received little formal education, he was able to read well enough to learn enough of the law on America's frontier in Tennessee to pass the bar and practice it by the early 1800s. As his career in law began to take off, Jackson also dabbled in both politics and running his own plantation, Hermitage, both with fairly strong success. During the War of 1812, a still relatively young Jackson signed on to exact some revenge against the detested British. Quickly rising through militia ranks, he acquired the rank of general, and at the Battle of New Orleans in 1815, his troops roundly slaughtered the British as they attempted an invasion through Louisiana. At this decisive battle, that effectively ended the final war with England, Jackson's troops inflicted over 2,000 casualties upon the 7,500 British troops. Jackson's soldiers suffered only 71 casualties. Hailed as the hero of not just the Battle of New Orleans, but the War of 1812 as well, Jackson could add the title of victorious general to those of state politician, lawyer, and successful plantation owner. If ever an American had been born to lead and emulate the best of early American manhood, it was Jackson. Jackson also emulated what many around the world had come to envy about America. If wise, strong, and at times lucky enough, any man could rise to fame and fortune in this country. Jackson was not born into wealth. He had no great mentor or progenitor looking out for his well-being after his family died. His wealth he earned. His victories in war and politics he won. He was the average everyday American in the early 19th century who, through his own strength of will and ambition, rose to daunting success. It's hardly surprising, therefore, that he had ambitions on the highest of all offices this land had to offer, the presidency. He first ran in 1824. Although there were 3 other candidates, his chief competitor was John Quincy Adams, son of America's second president and widely regarded as one of the most intelligent men in America. The The election was fiercely contested, so much so that no candidate won a majority of the electoral votes needed to win the White House. On the surface, Jackson seemed to be the winner. He won over 150,000 votes to Adams' 113,000. Jackson won 99 electoral votes to Adams' 84, but needed 131 to win. As a result, the election was decided by the House of Representatives, where allies of the other two candidates, Henry Clay and William H. Crawford, threw support for, and the presidency to, Quincy Adams. Jackson was stung by the loss, not simply because it was one of the few times in his life in which he actually lost something, but even more so because of how his fellow Democratic Republicans Crawford and Clay turned against him. This election also saw the death of the first two American parties. Adams was only the second and the last Federalist to serve in office. Because of the rift between Clay and Jackson, the Democratic-Republican Party split. The Democrats, the party of the people, followed Jackson. The Whigs followed Clay. Nevertheless, Jackson knew he could win in 1828. In the 1824 election, he had won more than 35,000 popular votes than the person who actually won the presidency. Jackson knew he had the voice of the people of America behind him. From the ashes of the Democratic-Republican Party and the now defunct Federalist Party, Jackson led the Democrats to victory over Quincy Adams. Winning all the southern states, Jackson also dominated in many northern states, such as Pennsylvania as well, no doubt because of his self-made man appeal, as much as his heroic status. Jackson won 178 electoral votes to Adams' 83 and took in nearly 150,000 more popular votes when just over 1 million people total voted. The presidency and a clear mandate from the people of the United States were his. Despite this early victory, his 8 years, 2 terms as president, would not be without their controversies and pitched battles.